Hyundai! You're listening to the K-League United podcast, proud partner of Football Nation Radio.
Hello, 안녕하세요. Ryan Walters back in the driver's seat for the first episode of Season 4, Series 4, as my partners in Saka might call it this week. I am joined by the Season 3 usuals, Matthew Binns.
Hello.
And Pete Hampshire.
Hello, gentlemen.
Good to see you both. Very exciting times, as always, in Korean football. The winter is always kind of more fun because you get to look at the kits, you get to talk about transfers, you get to do all of the things. But, gentlemen, slight issue that I have to start with here. What's with the coup?
Yeah.
Well,
we're taking Muyol with us as well.
Yeah.
I leave for 1 week, and you guys are like, Muyol's got gorgeous, luscious locks now. So there's the face of KLU sorted. He has all the referee opinions, knows all the things. The preseason pod, in case you're wondering what we're rambling on about, was these two gentlemen and our own Jung Muyol last week talking about what sounded like, on paper, doesn't sound like that enticing of a thing. Rule changes. But there was quite a bit.
Yeah, it was quite a bit. There was quite a bit of Barnsley chat. I listened back to it after it went out, and I thought there's probably way too much Barnsley on that podcast for what should have been about K-League rules. But yeah, lots to sink your teeth into ahead of the new season. Lots of things to get our heads around as we go into this season of the podcast and try to explain away why certain decisions have been made. But we'll probably cross that path when we actually get to domestic football. Yeah,
is Barnsley not just the 13th team in K1 now? I could swear by my Twitter timeline that Barnsley's just over here now.
Yeah, we're making our way into the MLS now as well with our signings. You can't move for Barnsley on K-League Twitter, can you?
No, I can't, but I'll keep trying. But anyway, as much as Pete would love it, and as a handful, we'll say all of our listeners would love to hear more about Barnsley, because who wouldn't? It's not what we're here to talk about today. We are kicking off Season 4 of the podcast in grand fashion, talking about international football. We're talking about the Club World Cup. We finally have a K-League team back in that competition. So we'll be talking about Ulsan Hyundai's chances against Tigres from Liga MX. But instead of us talking about that, we've brought in an expert on Mexican football. We'll talk with Cesar Hernandez in just a little bit about Tigres. I mean, I know you guys don't watch a lot of CONCACAF. They're real good. They're really good. He and I talk about it. It'll be interesting. Anyway, we're going to come back after that, and we're going to talk about the tournament that got Ulsan there. We're going to talk about the AFC Champions League and the 2021 edition. Gentlemen, I'm excited about this one this year. I really like it.
Yeah, there's plenty of new teams to get our teeth into as well, especially in the groups that the K-League teams have been put into. I know that in John Buck's group for Matt, they got Sydney again, but and Alex Wilkinson will be coming up against his old team again. But there's plenty of enticing ties, and it should be a great competition.
Yeah, I love seeing all the AFC Cup teams up there in this one. And I like the hub format, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Gentlemen, let's go ahead and get started with the Club World Cup. Matthew, you're not covering it this time. Bizarre. There's a prestigious thing for a K-League team, and we're not going directly to Matthew Binns. But yeah, Ulsan is there. And again, we'll preview it quite a bit with Cesar. You'll tell by the lighting that those of you watching this live that was a little earlier in the day today. So if only we did this during the day, the lighting would be so much better. But anyway, Pete, this isn't exactly the best timing for Ulsan to be trying to make a name for themselves on the global stage.
No, because with the new manager, Hong Myung-bo, he's certainly put his stamp on that new squad. And looking on paper, you wouldn't say it's in a particularly encouraging fashion. They've obviously lost Juni Negrao, and it just seems to have knocked on from there. Unknowns coming in terms of K-League. It sometimes takes new players a while to settle in, foreign signings. If you look at Lucas Hinterseer, he's not been too prolific, although I actually spoke to someone about him on Monday and some promising signs.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure Ulsan. Obviously they want to compete on this level where you're potentially coming up against the best teams from continents around the world, but timing wise, back to Qatar and then back for the start of the K-League at the end of February. You really, it's putting that much changed squad through the ringer, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a rough way to start. So Matthew, I'll come to you for this one. Can they win this one?
Well, thank you for throwing me under the bus with my knowledge of the opposition. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the opposition well enough.
Sure.
Yeah, it is a big overhaul though for Ulsan, and I'm sure they're going to be there or thereabouts come the end of the season under the domestic form. But this competition is way too early for them. I don't think they probably had any.
Matthew having some technical issues there. Go on.
Yeah, I just think they're probably treating this a bit like a friendly bit of a training camp. If they get through, then it's a great result for them. But I think Hong Myung-bo is. Apologies, everybody. I am having some technical difficulties. I think Hong Myung-bo.
First episode back.
It's not like we've had 4 episodes to warm up, is it? Like, you know, it's not like we did a whole season that we called pre-season that we to get ourselves warmed up ahead of this. And no, still haven't figured out how this microphone works. But yes, I think Hong Myung-bo. I don't even know what I was going to say.
I think, yeah, okay, all right.
I think Hong Myung-bo, he's got his sights set on the domestic front. He's not really looking to win this competition or do anything that special in it.
I think I'm really curious to see how Lee Dong-jun fits in right away, because I think Ulsan's going to have to change the way that they play without Junior up top when you've got somebody that scored 26 goals in 27 games for you. And then in a lot of ways, I'm not going to say one ACL, because obviously there were a lot of key players in that, but without him, I don't think they get it done. Losing him and losing that focal point, I think they're going to have to change the way they play. And that could be a good thing, to be honest. I think they'll keep the ball on the floor a little bit more and try to use the pace on the wings. We'll see. I think it's going to be interesting. But as I mentioned, to preview Tigres, and this is a new season 4 feature here. We're working. Video. For those watching live, thank you for staying with us. For those of you on the podcast, you might not even hear this anyway. But anyway, to preview the other side of this competition, to talk about Tigres and how they got here, we brought on Cesar Hernandez. All right, you've seen him on ESPN, The Athletic, 442, MLS, Vice Sports. Cesar Hernandez, you are absolutely everywhere when it comes to Mexican soccer, Mexican football, whatever people want to call it. I'm sure you get both of those, but welcome and thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And this is a rarity. I always love talking CONCACAF. I wish we could talk, those Wednesday night rainy games in CONCACAF Champions League, which maybe we will get into that, but we're here for the glory of the Club World Cup. And we are talking the Tiger Derby, as we're calling it over here, because it's Tigres versus Ulsan Hyundai, the Horangi, the Tigers as they're known. And for the folks over here in Asia that might not know, first of all, shame, because Tigres is a lot of fun to watch. But tell us a little bit about Tigres, how they got here, and, just a little bit of the history, because we'll get into how they got here in a minute.
Yeah, so Tigres are a fascinating side because they aren't traditionally a big Liga MX team. When you talk about big Liga MX teams, you talk about Chivas, you talk about America, you talk about Pumas, Cruz Azul. Those are not only successful teams, but teams that have a lot of popularity within Liga MX. Tigres are interesting because within the last decade, there's been no doubt that they've been the most dominant Liga MX team. Obviously, having more investment in the team and getting a roster filled with incredible talent really helps. But So it's been interesting to see how they've developed within the last decade. Because yes, they are a powerhouse in Liga MX. Yes, they get win after win after win. But one thing that they've always had a lot of criticism for is the fact that they tend to struggle in competitions outside of Liga MX. So Tigres, trying to make that move up, trying to be an equipo grande, a big team, as they like to call them in Liga MX, and doing well in the Club World Cup would really get you a little bit of respect. Especially since Liga MX teams don't exactly have the best track record in the Club World Cup. But yeah, Tigres, a team that's developing within the last decade. And also, I guess I do want to mention a team that it's within Monterrey. They are a very, very immensely popular team. And when you talk about the intensity of Liga MX fans, you'll find few fans as passionate as those who root for Tigres. And it's a shame that this is obviously some difficult times. We're not going to be seeing a packed stadium, because I'm sure you would have potentially seen a number of Tigres fans.
Yeah, that would have been fun to see everybody over there in Qatar for this one. Yeah, I think for Ulsan fans, you've hit on a lot of things that sound very familiar there. A lot of talent, have done well domestically. The difference is Ulsan hasn't been able to get it done in the league. They just keep Ulsaning in the league, and then they did manage to get it done in CONCACAF Champions League. That'd be fun. In ACL, the Asian Champions League. You can tell what I want to talk about today.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's keep the focus on CONCACAF because, as you said, Tigres have done really, really well. They've won the league 7 times total, but this was their first Champions League win. They beat LAFC. The Liga MX's dominance over MLS continues. And I guess you've kind of touched on this already, but what does that achievement mean for the club already? As you were saying, they struggle internationally. So is the Club World Cup just kind of like icing on the cake, or is this something that they really want to go for as well?
I think it's something they really want to go for, because when you look at competitions outside of Liga MX, a lot of Tigres fans would bring up the Copa Libertadores in 2015. They made it to the final and they lost 3-0 on aggregate, and they felt like that was an opportunity that was taken away from them, an opportunity to really get glory, outside of Liga MX. Now, unfortunately, Liga MX teams cannot take part in the Copa Libertadores. So now the next step up is winning something, or having a good finish in the Club World Cup, because with the CCL, that's been won before by, obviously, a long list of Liga MX teams.
Yes, very long list.
Yes. So Tigres have higher ambitions than that. And although this is the first time that they've done it, this is the first time that they've won, you could say a prestigious international trophy when it comes to club soccer in the region. This is now their chance to really, really push for something miraculous. I think a lot of them, and I also don't want them to be overconfident and looking past this Thursday game, because I think a lot of Tigres fans are, and they might be taking their opposition too lightly, and that's been a problem before in the past. But I think a lot of them are looking towards that semi against potentially against Bayern Munich and thinking, maybe they could do something there. Maybe because back in 2019, Tigres' rival Rayados, they were competitive against Liverpool in the Club World Cup. And that's fresh in the memory of not only Tigres, but also their fans. So they looked at that and they're thinking, well, if our biggest rival, if Rayados could do that against Liverpool and really, really made things, difficult in that 2-1 loss, and I would say even potentially outplayed Liverpool, then why not Tigres? And I think that's what Tigres are looking at this tournament. I think they're going to be very confident, but I think hopefully they're not a little too confident this Thursday. They just showed up. They're still trying to get a feel of the area. That's my only big worry, is that they'll be a little too confident this Thursday.
Yeah, 2 things. The first thing on that is this is what I love about the Club World Cup. A couple of years ago, we saw Kashima Antlers go toe-to-toe with Real Madrid. And so to me, no matter who it is, if it's not the European side in this, I'm always going to be cheering for them, just because I think that's when this tournament will get really interesting. So hopefully one of these teams can go toe-to-toe with Bayern. And yeah, you're prompting the questions perfectly here, because you've already led into the other one that I was going to ask. Is this coming at a good time for Tigres? Like you say, well, for Ulsan, they were just in Qatar. They just won ACL there recently. So this is a trip they're getting used to. Whereas Tigres, this is a really big trip. How much is jet lag going to affect them? And also, what condition is the team in overall right now? Where is the season? All that kind of stuff that folks over here might not know about.
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for them. These seem to be, based off the videos they've been showing, a lot. They've been hyping up a lot of stuff on social media, but the team definitely seems to be in good spirits. There's a clear amount of excitement regarding this tournament. And I think for many who follow Liga MX and many who follow Tigres, it feels like a now or nothing kind of moment for this team, because I think a lot of people, I think the consensus that this team is at either its peak or just slightly past its peak. Because although Tigres are the most talented team in not only CONCACAF, I would make an argument that they're potentially the most talented team in the Western Hemisphere. But the issue is they're also an aging team. Like that's it's most of their players are either in their 30s or they're close to their 30s. You have manager Ricardo Tuca Ferretti, who is extremely well respected. He's extremely experienced, but people have been noticing in recent months, recent years that, maybe he's becoming a little too predictable. Maybe he's lacking some creativity. So yes, they're at a good moment. Yes, it seems like for the most part, the team's fairly healthy, although they are more than likely going to be missing one key player up top. But other than that, it feels like this is the moment for them. Because if it's not now, I mean, they could win another CCL in the future, but you're going to need to see some sort of generational change soon. So like I said, it's definitely a now or nothing kind of moment for them.
Sure. And you already mentioned a few players. Who's somebody that Ulsan fans, either a big name or like somebody that really excites you, or I guess both? Who are the players that folks should be keeping an eye on in this one?
Well, it's tough because in all honesty, if Liga MX had an all-star team, you could make the case that at least 5 to 6 players from Tigres would be on that team. Not only on that team, but as starters for this team. But I mean, that's the centerpiece and the focal point of the attack is Andre Pierre Gignac. I mean, just powerful, aggressive, dominant in the air. I mean, there isn't a better striker in Liga MX within the last 5 years than the former Marseille player who was, of course, he was once the leading goal scorer in Ligue 1. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on. He is recovering from an injury, but he seems to be back to full fitness. Other than that, I would look in the midfield. I would look at Guido Pizarro, Rafael Carioca. I mean, there's just that midfield tandem is just the envy of all of Liga MX. They're both extremely well-rounded. Carioca, if needed, will be a little bit more defensive-minded. Guido Pizarro will be a little bit more attack-minded if needed. In defense, you have Carlos Salcedo, who he's played with Eintracht Frankfurt before in the past. He's won a German Cup title. I think it was a DFB Pokal with Frankfurt in the past. He seems to be finding resurgence right now. Seems to be thriving right now with fellow Mexican national team defender Diego Reyes. And then in net, you have Nahuel Guzman, who honestly he might add some fireworks in this game. He has a lot of charisma and overconfidence. So there have been numerous times. Well, let's say, for example, there's a shot on target, but it was like a shot from, let's say, 20 yards out. It's not, even if it's a crucial game, there's a decent chance that he might, as opposed to stopping it, might chest it. Maybe if someone gives him a chested breakdown, maybe if he receives a pass, maybe he'll try making a little bit of a fancy pass. Maybe if an opposing player gets too close to him, he might dive at him and try to force a yellow. And it's really obvious that it's not a yellow. He has a lot of character. Has a lot of charisma, a lot of confidence. So we might get some fireworks from Guzman. I think opposition fans might be hoping that he does one trick too many and gives an opportunity here for that might hurt Tigres.
Let's hope it goes to pens and we can just see him on display then. That'd be great.
Yeah, there you go.
Other than a very entertaining possibility of the goalkeeper playing a little bit too much, just give me a scorpion kick, actually. That's all that I want.
Yeah.
Just give me a scorpion kick mid-game.
I don't think he'll do that, but that would be... you can't rule anything out with Nahuel. I mean, I think it was last year, late 2019, he once it was in support of just LGBT rights. He wikied it, and then he's like, oh, cool, rainbow flag. And he just showed up to the next game, rainbow dyed hair.
Excellent.
And it's like, all right, that's Nahuel Guzman. He just loves to do that kind of stuff. I love it.
Fantastic. Okay, so that's who I'm watching now for sure. And I think we'll get you out of here on the tough stuff, we'll say. I'm going to put you on the spot here.
All right.
What's going to happen in this match? Because it's coming up very soon. And then what would you say are realistic expectations for Tigres in this tournament? Should they get past Ulsan? Or, again, is that even going to happen?
I think Tigres, you can kind of predict what they're going to do for the most part. They're going to want to control possession. They're going to be really patient with their build-up. That's something they like to do. They like to distribute out to the wings, have their pacey wingers just go down the line, or maybe cut inside and provide opportunities to Gignac, who is just a true number 9. If Carlos Gonzalez is healthy, then maybe you'll have a 4-4-2, and you'll still have those wingers, and it'll look like a traditional setup with just launching in crosses to these two strikers who are both aggressive, both powerful. So I think that's something that you should expect. I think if I was trying to deal with Tigres, I would definitely try to sit back, and maybe if Ulsan have done their homework, they would realize that it might be a little tough to go toe to toe with Tigres. Maybe the best way of dealing with this is just sitting back, absorbing pressure, and trying to hit Tigres on the counter, because more than likely there are going to be at least a few opportunities where Tigres are going to commit probably one or two players, like too many, going forward, and there'll be space in the wings. And if you have some speed and pace there, you could potentially capitalize on that against Tigres. So that's what I anticipate from Tigres in this upcoming game. I think it's going to be a close one, because Tigres, for all of their power and might, they don't win games 5 or 6-0. They're not, even though they should be the PSG of Liga MX, that's not how they play. You know, they're almost a little too practical and a little too, I don't know, patient with the way that they build up. So I imagine that they'll still get the win here. I imagine they'll probably get a 2-1 win here. I imagine, one thing that does tend to happen with them too is they sometimes allow one too many late goals. So that'll be an opportunity there for Ulsan. But perfect. I could see them getting a narrow win, and I could see them being competitive against Bayern Munich. And I think in the end, they'll probably lose against Bayern Munich in the semis, and then end up getting third and continue that streak of no Liga MX team ever qualifying for the final of a Club World Cup. But fingers crossed that they do actually give Bayern a little bit more of a fight. But it's just, it's too hard. It's too difficult to say that they can still be able to get the win there against Bayern.
Well, yeah, one thing at a time as well.
One thing at a time, right? Yeah.
We're not looking past Ulsan yet, but yeah, Ulsan, I think that this is a good time to be facing Ulsan, because there's been a lot of turnover just since they've won ACL as well. But pace on the counter, that they've brought in a couple of players for that, so I think that'll definitely be what they'll be looking to do. But Cesar, before we get you out of here, where can folks find you online if they want to follow Liga MX a little bit more, which they definitely should? Yeah, you can follow me at Cesar H Football on Twitter. And be sure to follow me there to follow some Liga MX coverage, and keep my fingers crossed that I wake up at 6 a.m. here over in the West Coast, Southern California, to watch that game Thursday morning. All right. Well, thanks so much for taking the time. Thanks again.
FNR is a revolutionary football-dedicated digital platform, the first of its kind in Australia. It provides a 24/7 live online radio platform experience, podcast hub, and acts as a content provider for TV, radio, and digital. Having reached millions of listeners and football fans since launching, FNR is accessible worldwide via its website or app, providing a platform to discuss, debate, and celebrate the world game. We are your voice of football, FNR Football Nation Radio.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Walters, and we are trying out some new features here, and I'm back with Matthew Binns, who has a working microphone.
I think so. If you can hear this, then potentially.
It's coming through an interesting sound and filter, though.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, I've got nothing I can do with that.
Well, you know what? Pete's here as well. Pete, talk to us for a little bit. How you doing tonight?
Well, you say talk to you, but actually about 3 hours ago, I forgot to say I had an injection in my mouth for the dentist. So if I'm chewing on my words tonight, then that's my excuse.
Man, you would think that of all of the preseason shows and everything that we had to get ready, that we'd be on it tonight, but you would have thought wrong, dear listener and or viewer. Yeah. It's still the same podcast you've come to know and love. Anyway, gents, that was. Did that make you feel better or worse about Ulsan's chances listening to Cesar there?
It definitely made me feel worse about my pronunciation ability.
Sure.
But seriously, yeah, worse, to be fair. It sounds like they're a well-drilled side, and I noticed their league's already started. 4 games in, they might have that momentum. On paper, it's not looking too hopeful, is it?
It's going to be a really tough one for Ulsan, but Let's talk about the competition that they did do quite well in, the one that got them to the Club World Cup. And again, the Club World Cup is Thursday night here in Korea for folks that are staying up late. It's an 11 p.m. kickoff. I'll be up for it. Putting on that late afternoon tea. It'll be coffee for me. I just want to say tea because I know how much Pete loves it. Anyway, let's talk about ACL, gents. And as we talked about at the top there, this edition, the 2021 edition, this is the first to involve 40 teams during the group stage. That's an increase from the previous 32. 5 group winners are going to advance, with the 3 best second-place teams also advancing. I love this. I love the idea of it. I love the fact that we have 5 groups in each side now, the East and West, and that you have to win your group if you want a guaranteed spot. I love that. I think it's going to see the group games improved a lot. And then also finishing second, it's not good enough to just finish second. You have to finish second and be better than other teams that finish second. So I absolutely love this. Matthew, I'm going to bring you back in here. We're going to test your microphone one more time, see how you're sounding tonight. But you're well versed in this competition. Jumbook are in it every year. What are your thoughts on the expansion and the overall format?
First of all, I hope this is sounding semi-respectable. Sound-wise, I mean, not about what I'm about to say, because what I say is never respectable most of the time. Anyway, I mean, I'm loving the fact that there's more teams in it. Well, I don't know whether I wanted more teams. I definitely wanted a wider variety of teams. I wanted a wider pool of teams. And variety is the spice of life. I think it's great that we're getting to see some of these other nations who regularly play in the playoffs. We're finally getting to see them in the group stages versus the teams that they usually get knocked out. Some of these will get knocked out in the playoffs against a highly seeded side, and we never really get to witness them. So I'm enjoying that. I am a bit skeptical about how many teams advance, mainly because of the year that John Buck's just had in the Champions League. That's more of a
a little worried, are you?
It's more of a selfish concern, that. But I do think it's going to increase, I guess, the quality. We're going to only see. We're only going to see the good teams go through. We're going to see the best. Yeah. There's going to be no real room for luck. I don't think there's going to be no scraping in at the last minute. I think the teams that will progress will be there on merit.
Yeah, absolutely. Pete, anything else before we jump into the groups?
Yeah, just looking at the 5 groups in the Eastern section, it doesn't seem like the quality has been diluted. There's still some groups of death in there. And it also doesn't increase the fixture congestion. It's still 4 teams to a group, so still playing the same amount of games. So yeah, all for it.
Yeah, really good point. And especially this year, again, I kind of liked the way that ACL went in 2020. I love a month-long knockout style tournament. I love it. I think last year the issue was East and West. There was too much time in between. I don't think Persepolis really got a fair shake of it, to be honest, coming in facing an Ulsan side that were on form. So that's something that would have to be looked at. But I mean, we're all doing the best that we can living through a pandemic. So the fact that we actually had some football there, I like this idea of the group stages all being played together. I hope Korea can host at least one of the groups. We'll see. Hopefully we'll have some news on that in the future. But anyway, let's get started. Let's dive into the groups here. And we're starting in Group F this year, not Group E, obviously, because there are more groups. And this is where Ulsan find themselves, and they are with the 2020/21 Thai League 1 first place team after half of the season. And that's BG Pathum United and BG as they're most commonly known. Tremendous crest. They got a little bunny on there and everything, but this team is really, really good right now. It's a weird thing that the Thai season was cut into half, and that's how the Champions League was sorted. It's just the only way that it was going to work in Thailand this year. Yeah, this is a team that has a 7-point lead at the top of the table. Diogo is back with the team after years with JDT, or back with Thai League, I should say, not back with the team. He was obviously with Buriram before. Tirsil Dangda is back after some time in Japan. So, I mean, this team was already good, and then they added these guys. So really, really interested to see them play. And then just, the V-League champions as well. Vittel FC, pick a logo, any logo. They've had 3 or 4 different ones thrown around depending on which broadcast you're watching, which is why there is no logo for them on this broadcast. They've only played twice this season with a loss and a draw, so we'll see there. As you all know, as you guys know, as anybody that's heard me talk before knows, I have a soft spot for the V-League, so I will be watching this group very, very, very closely. And the 4th team is yet to be determined because that is a playoff between Beijing Guoan or Beijing FC, as they're most likely to be known this season. And they will face either Brisbane Roar or Kaya FC. Kaya FC were the runners-up in the Philippines, and a team that I came to really like watching AFC Cup last year. I'm always a sucker for kits, as you guys know. They had some really good kits, but also I like the way that they played in that tournament. So I think that'll be a really fun group. And like you were saying, Pete, I don't think the quality has gone down in the slightest in this group. And I'll come back to you for this one. Is this a good draw for Ulsan?
Yeah, I think so. Just looking at the other groups, I think the other groups look stronger. I know you're a staunch supporter of like the Vietnamese league, but I think Hong Myung-bo has got to be happy with what is being given there, because if you look at Pohang and Jeonbuk's, and if Daegu get through as well, their groups have got champions from more established leagues. So I think you should be happy with that on paper.
Pete, throwing Southeast Asia under the bus. Matthew, save this segment. Is it a good draw for Ulsan? And who's their biggest challenger in this group, do you think?
I think, well, first of all, I think it's probably the best draw they could have hoped for, being in pot 2, because they were not in pot 1. Obviously, they didn't win the league, and
did they not, Matthew?
No. I just saw a lot of people getting upset about it, that they weren't in pot 1, and I'm like, well, they didn't win the league, so they don't go in pot 1. It's very simple. That's how it works. But yeah, no. Seriously though, in pot 2, that was probably one of the best draws they could have hoped for. Having watched Jeonbuk come unstuck against Thai League opposition on multiple occasions, I probably would be a little bit wary about being overconfident with some of those fixtures. I guess the travel element is taken out of it, though, in these groups, because they're all going to be in a hub anyway. So any home or away advantage is kind of, it disappears, doesn't it, in this sense? What we've seen with K-League teams in the past is when they go to Southeast Asia, or even if they go all the way down to Australia, then we see them struggle with the logistics when dealing with the away trip. So with that out of the equation, I think Ulsan probably do have the advantage in the group. If Beijing Guoan get in, which I would probably expect them to out of those playoffs, no offense to Brisbane. I think it's going
to be Kaya.
You think, yeah, right, well, yeah. Well, I think Beijing Guoan might cause them some problems. Yeah.
Sierras Negros knocked off an A-League side. It happens, man. Or Home United, as they're now called, or whatever. We'll talk about them soon. City, whatever.
But yeah, biggest challenge. If Beijing Guoan get through, then I'd say them. If not, then well, let's go for the V-League champions, just because.
Why not? Well. All right. Well, let's move on. We said this was going to be a quick segment. We'll move on to the next group now. I won't talk as much in this one. Pete, this group involves your precious Pohang Steelers. We'll see how you're feeling about them now that the new season's about to start. This also has the 2020 CSL champions, a new name finally, Jiangsu Suning. I know Matthew could pronounce that better than me. Sorry. The third place team from J1, Nagoya Grampus. JDT is there after winning their 7th Malaysian Super League title, Johor Darul Tazim, for those that don't know the full name there. And then there is a playoff between the Pohang Steelers, who finished 3rd in K1, and Ratchaburi, who were in 4th place at the split of the Thai League season. So, Pete, can Pohang even make this? Can they get past this playoff?
Yeah, I think so. And one thing I didn't realize that other people listening might not is that the playoff against Ratchaburi of Thailand is in the 14th of April. So it's a long way off. I had just assumed it was coming up a long way before the group stage, but it's only a couple of weeks before the group stage. They've got to get past Ratchaburi, whose season will finish 2 weeks prior, so they've got a nice little rest, the Thai side. Whereas one problem for Pohang might be in the week leading up to this playoff, they have Jeonbuk at home and FC Seoul away. They've got Seoul away just 4 days before this playoff. 2 tough games on paper, especially with how Seoul are improving their squad in the close season. And Pohang have got 6 games in the few weeks leading up to it, including Ulsan, Jeonbuk and Seoul. So it's going to be a key month for Kim Gi-dong's side, definitely. There's a memorable face as well in the Ratchaburi side. Lee Jae-sung, obviously at Incheon United last year, won a couple of titles with Jeonbuk and Champions League with Ulsan as well. But yeah, Pohang, I stressed so often late last season now that it's going to be their year in 2021, backing them to win the K-League, and I hope you've not got those podcasts on repeat, because obviously they've lost Ilyuchenko, Palisevich, Choi Young-jun, and the centre-back pairing as well. And looking at who they've brought in, not much attacking impetus brought into that side. A few good defensive players like Shin Jin-ho from rivals Ulsan. But yeah, I still think they'll get through to a tough group stage. And I think their group is one of the toughest groups on paper if they do get through that playoff.
Yeah, that's a really tough one. Matthew, anything to add in Group G before we move on to whoever's playing in Group H?
I'd just like to pick you up on the Chinese champions there, Jiangsu Suning. They're actually, Suning is the conglomerate that owns them, and I imagine that is being taken away. They're actually going to be Jiangsu FC for this competition, because Chinese Super League at the moment, for anybody who's following news that's going on there, the Chinese FA is moving towards getting rid of any corporate names in there. So yeah, it's just Jiangsu FC for this one.
Yeah, similar
I was actually reading about Jiangsu today, and it seems like there might be a change in the managerial setup, and one of the youth team coaches is looking to take over the first team training. So that could be a little disruption for them.
Perfect. We hope. We hope that disruption lasts for 3 more months. Let it keep going. All right, let's move on to Group H, where Matthews, General Hyundai Motors won the league again. They were also FA Cup winners, so there they sit. They will be facing Gamba Osaka, who were the J1 runners-up. Tampines Rovers, that's right. Get that stag in there. Another amazing crest, another amazing team from Southeast Asia. They were the 2020 Singapore runners-up. And Sydney FC, a team that you're going to need to know really, really well, Matthew.
Yeah, well, I think I think John Booker, we're very familiar with Sydney FC after last season. They played them twice in the group stage.
Go on.
Let's go on. This is what, if you're watching this live, this is a nice little bonus.
You cut out a group stage, by the way. You cut out after the play twice at the group stage.
I cut out. It's the worst bit of this is I've got to go again with an audience. That's the worst bit of it. It's like it's one thing going again, but then it's another thing going again, knowing, well, there's people watching. So I now have to go again, and I've lost my train of thought. But yeah. Yeah, they'll be very... the curtain's been pulled open. This is how it normally is. Yeah. Anyway, John Book will be quite familiar with Sydney, having faced them twice in last year's Champions League, drawing 2-2 down in Sydney, before narrowly beating them in Qatar. Yes, John Book did have a bit of a depleted squad, but so did Sydney. Should have been a bit more convincing. But then again, John Book have never lost to A-League opposition. I don't think they'll be wanting to start now, but Sydney are quite a credible threat. Ones to watch, Costa Barbarouses. He's the New Zealand attacker for Sydney. He scored 8 last season. He's actually played against John Book 6 times, playing 4 times when he was at Melbourne Victory. Also, Alex Wilkinson, obviously the former John Book centre back. Speaking of the narrative klaxon, Gamba Osaka have a few players that will be familiar to K-League fans, and one even familiar to John Buck. So Gamba Osaka, they come in as J-League 1 runners-up, Emperor Cup runners-up. So they are basically the J-League's Ulsan Hyundai, which could either mean John Buck is going to win both of these, or Gamba's going to go on and win this competition. It could go either way, really. Yeah, but they did knock out John Buck in the quarterfinals in 2015 with it was a last-minute goal, and it was gutting because John Buck actually scored what would have been the winning away goal in the 88th minute, only to lapse of concentration in defence. But anyway, I digress. That was in the past. It was in the past. But ones to watch at Gamba, well, there's the Jeonju born and educated Kim Yong-gwan, also famous now because of our new intro, everybody.
Hey.
But yeah, he's actually never played in the K-League. He's never played actually for John Buck either, but he's a Korean international defender and famous for scoring one of the winners against Germany in 2018. He's won 2 ACLs with Guangzhou Evergrande. He is accompanied by his compatriot Ju Sejong, who's just moved there from Seoul. So that's a familiar face for K-League fans. Also familiar face for John Buck fans. Thiago Alves has made the switch there at the end of January. So Thiago not really doing the business at John Buck in his 2-year stint there. He's going to see whether he can do it now, prove his previous employers wrong. But I think the one to watch will be Leandro Pereira, who they've just signed from Sanfrecce Hiroshima. Finally, Tampines Rovers, aka the Stags. They were the 2020 Singapore Premier League runners-up. Runners-up? It's straight into the group. Well, that's because the actual Singapore Premier League was won by Albirex Niigata, but they're a Japanese side, and foreign teams in the Singaporean league cannot qualify for the ACL. So being runners-up, it sees Tampines straight in here. And ones to watch, well, at the moment, it'll be Canadian midfielder Jordan Webb and Montenegrin attacker Boris Kopitovic, who picked up 9 goals in 15 in the last campaign. So, yeah, John Buck as group favourites. Yes, technically. Right. I think, given that they are from the K-League, which has got a higher coefficient than all of these leagues, and they are who they are, then yeah, they should be. But I think Gamba Osaka is going to be the real test for them. Sydney will pose their challenge. Tampines will try. I to be honest, I don't really know enough about them at this point in time to give them a fair...
A fair nothing. Your mic cut you off.
This is... I am so...
Did it again. All right, so we're gonna move on from Matthew there.
No, I'm getting it. So I can't really give them a fair review, but I think Gamba Osaka are going to pour there. Watch out for Gamba Osaka. Edit that in.
All right, well, watch out for Gamba Osaka at Matthew Binn's request through the time warp there. All right, let's move on to Group I. Don't worry, we've only got 2 more groups. All right, we have in Group I, Kawasaki Frontale, the J1 champs again, Guangzhou Evergrande, the CSL runners-up, United City. I couldn't remember what combo they had together there. United City, formerly Cerros Negros, or the Busmen, as they used to be known. And now they're just United City. So if anybody wants to buy a team and rename them, please do that. But that doesn't mean that they don't have talent on that team, because they definitely do. And this is a group that K-League fans would be keeping an eye on, because Daegu FC are in this as in the playoff anyway, having finished in 5th. Usually 5th would not be good enough, but if you don't know, they are in there because Sangju Sangmu could not qualify for this competition because they are now Gimcheon Sangmu. So that is why Daegu's in there, and they will be facing Shanghai United, a team that people are fans here should be more familiar with after the Beatles. That's with 2 E's, not an A, as an actual Thai league website put it recently. It just said The Beatle, and it had an A in there. So personally, I think it was probably George. But anyway, you're probably familiar with the Beatles at this point. They beat FC Seoul just a couple of months ago in Champions League. So a team that Daegu are really going to have to look out for. And Pete, I'm just going to skip to the meat of this one, because we know Kawasaki Frontale, we know Guangzhou Evergrande. We could talk a little bit about United City, but I think when the time comes around to do group previews, we'll get somebody in to talk in more detail about those clubs. But Daegu, are you worried about this playoff for them? Can they get past Shanghai?
As I said many times on here, I think any team with Cesar has got a chance of a one-off game.
Yeah.
And they'll draw confidence from that 2019 Champions League campaign, where the Daegu Stadium came alive. It's a shame if they do get through that. Obviously, they wouldn't have that again with the central hub of fixtures. They actually beat Guangzhou Evergrande in that run at home. The only thing with Daegu is, again, just like with Pohang, they've got Gangwon away 4 days before in the league. So it's kind of a shame that the K-League haven't helped these sides out with their fixture planning.
It's a very congested schedule. And, hey, who knows? Maybe Group I will be hosted here in Korea. And there are 2 stadiums in Daegu, One of them is big and you can space people out, get some fans in there. The other one could host the smaller matches per se. Just saying, I'm going to keep pitching this. Hopefully somebody AFC is listening. There's a stadium in Yongin that nobody uses. Let's host it there. Let's go. Seriously, though, I should write something up about that. But anyway, if they do get through the playoff, Matthew, I'm going to risk this, and I'm going to come back to you here. If Daegu do get through the playoff, can they do well in this group?
You did ask that question quite slowly. I was on edge. Then I was going to cut out again. Yes, no. Yeah, I mean Daegu. Guangzhou FC are going to be a very difficult. Well, yeah, Kawasaki Frontale are not bad either, are they? Really? I don't think so. I think Daegu could give it a very good go, and I think they will probably get a result that will shock the rest of that group, but I don't think they can get the points necessary to progress to the next stage. Sure. At the moment, who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks in the transfer window.
Too true. Yeah. In large part, that's because they're without ACL veteran and a man that is just a few goals away from catching up to Idong-guk, actually from beating outright Idong-guk as the ACL scoring champion. That's Dejan Damjanovic, and he is no longer in Korea. He is with Kichi, the 2019-2020 Hong Kong Premier League champions, and they are in Group J, along with Shandong Taishan, the FA Cup winners in China, Port, the 2020-21 Thai League second place team. Again, that's just half of their season. And then in this group, the playoff will be between Cereza Osaka, and they will face off against either Melbourne City, Matthew's A-League team by default, or the 2020 Myanmar National League champions, Shan United. Come on, Shan United. Do it. It'd be so much fun. Anyway, if not, we'll see them in FA Cup. But no K-League teams in that one, so we're going to skip that one for now because we said we were going to do shorter podcasts this season. We're not doing it, but we do have a mailbag to get to right on the other side of this break. We'll be right back.
Ulji Lewis is your neighborhood British bar and cafe located in the Old Giro district of Seoul. Decorated in old English antiques and furniture for a true homely feel, you can enjoy homemade scones, cakes and afternoon tea during the day, and traditional British favourites like beef stew, English ale, and a fine selection of wine at night. Available for private parties or simply an evening out, Ulji Lewis is sure to become your favourite neighbourhood pub. Be sure to mention K-League United at the bar during your visit and you'll get 10% off your bill.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Walters. And if you're watching live, that's the new video version of the Ulji Lewis advert. And it's got these guys smiling. That's what we wanted. They have an adorable dog. And
I'm more mesmerized by that sticky toffee pudding.
I put that one together and I knew that the shot of like the close-up of pouring tea would just have every Englishman watching like, ooh, Ooh, a little bit of that. Okay.
We're not even past the watershed. We've put that filter on. Oh. But I do like the way you've upgraded everything about this podcast. But for some reason, I'm now just getting drowned out or muted out. I think I want to know what was in those engagement surveys. I think it may have been less Matt Binns, more Ulgi Luis.
Yeah.
So
we get that comment every week. I've just been ignoring it for too long, and now I have to give the people what they want. Speaking of what the people want, it's into the Ulgi Luis mailbag we go. And Matthew, I know that you have a few already. Actually, no, I'm going to take it from you. I'm going to take it from you because you're Mike. Sorry. All right, so I will start. Ugh, feels weird doing this. This is usually Matt's thing. Anyway, into the Ulgi Luis mailbag, and we're going to start, as we always start, with the 94th minute. Clint has come in on YouTube this week, so we're going to start there. And he said, should Ulsan somehow reach the final of the Club World Cup, will it give the K-League a meaningful boost at home and abroad? And he's emphasizing that it would be more important for the boost here at home, which I would 100% agree with after watching a week of people thinking that Lee Sung-woo maybe gracing us with his presence would be a big deal. But I will save my rant about that young man for a different podcast. Pete, I know your mic works. I'll come to you on this one. If Ulsan could reach the final, which would be massive, would this be a meaningful boost?
Yeah, but not as much as the K-League starting in the COVID times last year was a boost for me. Maybe that's just my Barnsley perspective, English perspective on the Club World Cup as a tournament itself. I think, as Benz was alluding to earlier, maybe it just doesn't have that emotional pull, this tournament, as it perhaps does in other countries. But yeah, certainly if they got to the final, and a large chance it would be against Bayern Munich as well, then you could see great coverage of the K-League across into Europe, certainly. And as Clint pointed out, a boost in domestic settings. Perhaps we could finally go into work and not have to explain that we're watching K-League football and not Tottenham Hotspur every Monday morning. That would be fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, the most common response that I would get a lot of times is, who's Kaylee? When I said I watch a lot of K-League. Who's Kaylee? Yeah. Anyway, Matthew, anything on Ulsan? Would this improve things domestically if they were able to make a name for themselves in this tournament?
If they can somehow verse Bayern, then yes. I don't think that's no disrespect to any other teams in the competition, because they're all champions and all great teams in their own right, but Korean supporters like European football. Korean football fans like European football. If you got Ulsan to face Bayern Munich in a competitive match, and if there was a trophy on the line, then yes, definitely. But if it's not Bayern, I don't see it really having that much of an effect.
Fair enough. All right, we're going to move on to one that we got on Twitter from Osri Furman. Osri, as always, throwing in a couple of different questions here. And there's one about challenging for the title in K1 this year. Too soon. We'll come back to that one. He's got one here that I like about Ulsan. Let's stick with them because they are in the Club World Cup. They're also in Champions League. So let's stick with them here. And he's asking, is Hong Myung-bo making his own job difficult by changing the team too quickly? Pete?
Yeah, and also there's rumors about Yoonbit Garam and Wondu Jae as well.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that's the spine of that success in the Champions League. It's certainly too fast. I mean, they could have been continental treble winners if they hadn't have come up against Jeonbuk twice last season. So I'm not quite sure why he's so keen to change so many aspects of that side. They're obviously part of that 5-way transfer that's seen no fees going anywhere with Kim Ji-hyun, and I think that's a sensible signing for them. And it'll be up to them if they play the same formation they did last season, who's going to lead the line, him or Hinterseer.
Yeah, if only they had a guy that scored a bunch of goals in Champions League that they could have just brought in as a natural replacement. But Bjorn Johnson isn't with the team right now, and there are rumors of him maybe joining with FC Seoul, which would be lovely. Him and Na Sang-ho. Yes, please.
Captain Shin Jin-ho to your biggest rivals as well, and then Pohang, if they start off well, and you're looking down the road 20 minutes and you're thinking, what have we done?
Yeah, it's a lot of changes. It's too many changes in my opinion. I agree with you. I just think they've already taken away some large building blocks, and they're very close to just ripping out the spine, Johnny Cage style. It was Johnny Cage that did that, right? Mortal Kombat.
Oh, don't ask me about films. I'm terrible.
It's a video game, Pete. Anyway,
Well, same thing in my book.
they don't have those in Kim J. They don't have those.
If it's not a Football Manager, I'm not interested.
Fair enough. All right, Matthew, I'll risk it real quick. Hong Mung Bo, is he making it too difficult on himself?
I think with the fans, yes. I don't think I think the board is backing him in this. They must be the one let this kind of overall happen. So I think he's probably got a free pass at this Club World Cup. He's probably getting a lot of time as well on the training ground to get them in shape for the new season. Also, Pohang's had a bit of an upheaval this year. Jeonbuk, they've had a new manager and haven't really bought anyone other than a striker. So
just some striker.
Yeah, I mean, okay, it was a good striker they've bought, but the teams that will be challenging them are also in kind of a bit of flux at the moment. So if Ulsan are going to change things up, this is the time for them to change things up. I think Ulsan will come good. They'll need a bit of time to get going, but I think they will come good. But yeah, he could be making it difficult with the fans who have obviously grown attached to a lot of those players over the last 2 seasons, and also, winning the Champions League with those players. Yeah, you don't really want them to be leaving. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. He's really got to get some good results to convince the support, I think.
Yeah, agreed. And they were one of the teams that was supposedly in for Lee Sung-woo, and I don't. Ooh, that would have been a lot for him to handle in his first season in charge of the club. Before we move on to the last question here, we did get one more comment in from Clint that said Pete gets an automatic 3-match ban for not knowing about Mortal Kombat. So
fair enough.
Sorry about that one, Pete. Rules are rules, though, man. This is how things go in season 4. This is just what it is. All right, let's get one last one in here, and this is from our own George Slade. And he's asking about the new K-League B teams. For those that don't know, the B teams of K-League 1 clubs are going to be allowed to play in K4 this season. And he's asking, should those new K-League B teams be exclusively for Koreans? If not, should it be first-team foreigners brought down for fitness, or should B teams be able to have their own 3+1+1 quota and sign talented foreigners? This one I find very interesting because I personally think K4 and K3 should be looking... I think every single K-League team should be looking to Southeast Asia, but I do think that K3, K4, if we're talking about places like Cambodia that haven't really been scouted yet, I think that would be a great place to start. But I don't know that B team should be able to have anybody that's not on the senior team books. I personally don't like that. But Matthew, I'll risk coming to you here. What is your opinion on the roster rules here? And I know you went into it on the pod last week a little bit, but about the B teams in general for those that didn't listen to that one yet.
Well, I do suggest to go and listen to that, really, because there's a cracking host on that episode. Well, first of all, it should be said only one K-League team has taken up the option at the present, and that's Gangwon. No other K-League teams have taken up the option. They're all going to be fielding teams in the R-League at the moment. I think the deadline is still potentially open for them to submit. I'm not 100% sure. What I am sure on is that the current rules are that there still has to be 7 players under the age of 23, I believe, in the B team squad.
Okay.
Of the 11 players. So it is mainly a side aimed at focusing on youth. To answer George's question, well, I don't think there should be additional. I think it should be players from the main team that are just coming down to get fitness, because that's what it's replacing. It's replacing a reserve league team. So as far as I'm concerned, it should be there to give players match fitness and things. But it is predominantly to get young players into getting some game time. Yeah,
this is one where I would like to see it kind of similar to something in the States that we saw when MLS teams started pairing up with USL teams, and it was essentially their B team competing in that league. The idea that I like about it is that then these matches actually mean something. They're a little bit more competitive, but the way that I would like to see it run is that there's an agreement between the clubs and there's easier player movement, but the club is still essentially running itself. But that's just me. Pete, I'll get one quick one from you, and then we're going to get out of here because we're at the hour mark and we're over what people told us they wanted. So quickly, and then we'll go.
If you look at where this kind of system's established, then it'd be Germany with Bayern Munich's B team. And I was looking at their squad earlier today, and not all the players that play in that side are youngsters coming down with hope of getting into the first team. There's a 34-year-old defender and there's a 31-year-old midfielder who they've signed from the regional league. Obviously, you're not signing a 31-year-old with the hope of getting into the first team. And that squad has lots of internationals. It's got 6 different nationalities. It's not just a German development side. And what they seem to be doing is plucking youngsters, 17-year-olds. There's a couple of English 17-year-olds in there, and helping them develop. So I guess there's a balance to be made. Mm-hmm. That's probably a big skew. It does seem to be full of you're either 17 or you're 34. But I think it has worked there because it's not like they're dominating the part of the league and there is only one team. It's not just if you're stuck in a 12-team league and 8 of the teams are B teams, that's a bit boring for the other 4 competitors.
Yeah, certainly something to look forward to there. And what I heard is that 34-year-olds are still playing and doing a job. So if anybody needs a slow, immobile, and not great with the ball at their feet right back for a 4th division club, I'm available.
You're 35 though, aren't you?
Yes, sure. Thank you for thinking that could be a possibility. Anyway, speaking of good things, let's talk about Patreon because we're going to start this year. We're going to have a little segment at the end of the show here where we're going to get in a nice little quip, just one little brief thing from patrons this year. So something that you thought we may have forgotten about, just a really quick little talking point or just a shot across the bow at somebody like Pete for not knowing things about Mortal Kombat. Anything you want to throw in, we're going to include that for patrons this year. And speaking of patrons, big shout out to our latest patrons, Charles Usher, Eric, no last name given. Appreciate the anonymity there, Eric. And Claire Haggerty, thank you so much for signing up. If you have not signed up and you're curious about what's going on over there, well, Paul Neat is very, very busy these days. He has daily news briefings in his anchor voice, by the way. It's quite nice. He also does Saturdays along with quite a few of the rest of us. Koreans Overseas is George Slade's article that's also shared with other people. We have pub quizzes that we host. We have all sorts of things going on. Knockout Round Survivor is going to be coming back. Survivor Series, as I like to call it, because I like to hark back to 90s wrestling whenever I can. Dan Croydon's going to be running that, and that is involved at the $1 tier. So if you want to get in and try to predict a team that's not going to lose, that's all you have to do. It sounds so simple. Predict a team that won't lose, and then you can win prizes at the end of the season. That's at the $1 tier. The good stuff, however, starts at the $3 and $5 tier. And if you would like to listen to this podcast live and hear all of our technical issues, then you can do so every Thursday on Football Nation Radio down in Australia. And as I say every week, when the A-League season is up and running, it is worth listening to that radio just to dive into this league where nothing is predictable and it's all madness. Thank you, Perth Glory, for being insane. I love it. Anyway, as for this podcast, if you leave us a review wherever you download your podcast, then you'll be entered into this month's kit contest, which is actually just a giveaway. And this month it is for the Ulsan Greeners. No reason. Might be because there's a rumored signing about to happen. We'll wait until things are official. But an Ulsan Greeners kit is up for grabs in the month of February, leading up to K-League kicking off later this month. So that's everything that we got going on. We will, of course, be back next week. So any questions, comments, or reactions, get those in on social at K-League United, or you can reach us at info@kleagueunited.com. But for now, for Pete Hampshire and Matthew Binns, I'm Ryan Walters. Thanks so much for watching.